Most Reddit posts are forgotten within hours, but this one became a record of a relationship, thousands of comments long, between two strangers who never met, yet revealed more to each other than most people ever do face to face. They went by the names Eric R. and Another Little Piece. What began as casual conversation slowly turned into something deeply emotional, intensely personal, and publicly visible to anyone who knew where to look. Years later, the trail they left behind still makes people uncomfortable to read because of how it ends. Reddit hosts thousands of communities built around nearly every topic imaginable. Among them is a subreddit called r/r for R, short for Redditor for Redditor, where users search for friendships, relationships, or simply people to talk to. While most posts fade into obscurity within hours, occasionally something far more lasting begins. One day, a user named Eric R., often referred to simply as Eric, made a casual post suggesting a small meetup. His idea was simple: gather a few people, share pizza, and spend time hanging out together. It was an ordinary post, the kind posted daily, but it caught the attention of another user named Another Little Piece, who would later be known simply as Annie. Annie responded warmly, saying she loved the idea, but lived too far away to participate. Despite that, she expressed interest in talking to Eric, explaining that she enjoyed having thoughtful, platonic conversations with people who shared similar interests. She also made two boundaries very clear from the beginning. She wanted their conversations to remain strictly platonic, and she preferred to talk publicly through Reddit threads instead of private messages, mainly because she was already in a relationship. Eric respected both boundaries. Instead of private chats, he suggested creating conversation branches, large threads where they could reply to each other repeatedly until Reddit archived the post. When that happened, they would simply create a new thread and continue where they left off. What started as a creative workaround quickly became something far larger than either of them probably expected. Their first thread eventually grew to over 24,000 replies. Most of the conversation was surprisingly ordinary. They shared music recommendations, discussed their daily lives, joked about random topics, and talked about their thoughts and emotions in long, detailed messages. But as the thread expanded, readers who later explored the archive noticed subtle changes in tone. Beneath the friendly exchanges, there were hints of growing emotional attachment. The conversations became increasingly personal, filled with poetic language and deeply reflective thoughts. Eventually, like all Reddit threads, Branch 1 reached its limit and was archived, forcing them to create a new thread. When Eric created the second thread, it was clear that something had shifted between them. Their messages carried a new emotional weight. While they never directly acknowledged romantic feelings, the way they spoke to each other suggested that their connection was evolving beyond simple friendship. Their words often resembled personal letters rather than internet comments. They wrote about how much they valued each other, how their conversations had become a central part of their daily lives, and how unusual it felt to share such openness with someone they had never met. For readers discovering the threads later, the experience felt almost surreal, like watching two strangers slowly fall in love in real time, without either fully acknowledging it. By the time they reached their third thread, the emotional intensity between Eric and Annie had become undeniable. During this period, Annie mentioned that she was no longer with her significant other, though details surrounding the breakup were vague and scattered across conversations. Eric, meanwhile, openly discussed dating other people after meeting Annie. Despite this, they continued communicating publicly, maintaining the same thread format they had used from the start. It's unclear why they never moved their conversations to private messages, but it's possible that the public format had simply become part of their routine, or perhaps part of what made their connection feel safe and structured. Their conversations during this time were filled with emotional vulnerability, shared memories, and a sense of dependency that had quietly developed between them. Eventually, they created what would become their final thread. At first, everything seemed normal. Their conversations carried the same poetic tone, the same emotional closeness, and the same familiarity that had defined their relationship for months. Then, without warning, Annie posted a message saying she could no longer continue their conversations. Her explanation suggested that the relationship had become emotionally overwhelming. She described struggling with jealousy whenever Eric mentioned other women, even though she wanted their connection to remain honest and transparent. She admitted that continuing to talk was causing her emotional pain, despite how much she cared about him. Eric attempted to reassure her, offering to change how he spoke about relationships or anything that might hurt her. But Annie remained firm. She made it clear that ending their communication was the only way she believed she could protect herself emotionally. One of her final messages referenced the recurring theme they had often discussed: the idea of a second life, where they could meet under different circumstances and live differently. It was a farewell that felt both romantic and deeply tragic. After that exchange, Annie disappeared from Reddit entirely. While Annie never returned, Eric did. 4 days later, he posted again, sharing something that reminded him of her. Then he returned weeks later with another message describing how difficult life had felt since their final conversation. Over time, his posts became more frequent, often resembling letters written to someone who was no longer there to read them. He shared updates about his life, trips he was taking, and memories tied to their conversations. Some posts felt like he was speaking directly to Annie, maintaining a one-sided dialogue long after their connection had ended. On the 1-year anniversary of their final conversation, Eric wrote an emotional reflection, describing how deeply their relationship had impacted him and how difficult it was to move forward. His messages gradually became darker and more introspective. Eventually, he created a final thread dedicated entirely to their memories. In his last known post, Eric acknowledged that the thread would soon be archived, meaning he would lose the last remaining place where he could publicly express his thoughts about her. After that message, Eric vanished from Reddit completely. He has not posted in over 6 years. Because both Eric and Annie disappeared, their story quickly attracted speculation. One of the most common theories is the most tragic: that Eric may have harmed himself after Annie left. His final post carried heavy emotional weight, leading some readers to fear the worst. However, there is no evidence confirming this, and it remains speculation. Another theory suggests that both Eric and Annie simply chose to leave Reddit behind, possibly recognizing how emotionally consuming their relationship had become. Some people have also proposed that the entire story was written by one person as an elaborate creative project. While their writing styles were undeniably similar, the sheer volume of replies and the detailed accounts of their personal lives make this explanation unlikely. Others suggested it might have been a long-term online role-playing project or social experiment. Again, the scale and emotional consistency of their conversations make it difficult to believe that someone maintained such an intricate narrative for so long without seeking recognition. The story of Eric and Annie resonates with so many people because it highlights something uniquely modern. The internet allows strangers to form deep, meaningful connections with people they would never meet otherwise. It creates opportunities for emotional closeness that transcend geography, culture, and daily life. But it also reveals how fragile those connections can be. Unlike traditional relationships, online bonds can disappear instantly, sometimes with no closure, no explanation, and no way to know what truly happened afterward. Eric and Annie left behind thousands of messages, documenting a relationship that felt deeply real, yet ultimately existed only through text on a screen. Their story remains one of Reddit's most haunting examples of how powerful and how temporary online relationships can be. And somewhere within archived threads and locked posts, their conversations still exist, frozen in time, waiting for anyone curious enough to read them.